Hello, Taylor Elwood, your mad scientist and magical experimenter at magicalexperiments.com. Today I want to talk about identity work and ancestry. Recently I went away on a trip to South Dakota to visit my dad, and while I was there he ended up taking me to Canby, Minnesota, where my grandparents and my great-grandparents and my great-great-grandparents are buried. It was really fascinating for me to not only see their graves, but to actually hear him tell stories about the experience that he had growing up with those people. I felt like certain things clicked into place as I heard his stories and his experiences with these people that I didn't really know. I'd only met my grandparents maybe 4 times in my life in person, and I talked to them on the phone occasionally, but I was a kid, and kids don't really, the conversations you have with your grandparents, when you're a kid, they're not necessarily all that deep and meaningful. At least they weren't in my case. Maybe they are in yours, and hey, great. So for me, it was fascinating to hear these stories and to find out about these people, find out about their experiences, the way they live their lives, some of their faults, some of their successes, things like that. And what it did for me is it allowed me to look at certain behaviors of mine in a different context, a deeper historical context, and say, yeah, okay, I see where really I inherited this behavior because of this, of not just my dad, but what happened to my dad because of his parents, and what happened to them because of their parents. Basically there's this generational cycle that came into play, and it really struck me as important to acknowledge this and recognize it, because so often I find that we treat ourselves as isolated individuals, and we don't look at the full context of who we are in relationship to our family. And so for me, being able to look at my family, look at who these people were and how they behaved and why they interacted the way they did, said a lot to me about who I am and why I'm the way I am, and also helped me to reflect on some of the changes that I made, and how, in some ways, I'm breaking certain patterns that have been in my family, um, and in other ways sustaining certain patterns that have been in my family. And so I think that when we're doing internal work, and identity work, we want to look at those kinds of factors. I mean, there's other factors too. There's culture, there's environment, there's other things, but it's worthwhile to do some digging with your family. Now, you may not be able to do it with, if in the case you're adopted, that may be a bit harder. I mean, if you can find out information about your actual genetic ancestors, then great. But at the same time, you may also want to look at the ancestors of your adopted family, because again, there's going to be certain patterns that are behavioral that are being played out. They're not necessarily genetic. And I think it's important to remember that too, that the genetics play a role, but so does the behavior. Um, and so, in my case, I learned about my family, and I learned about these behavioral traits that I see in myself, and I got this context, and it helped me understand my dad better as well. I felt like, okay, here I know this person in a different way than I did before, because I'm hearing these stories and I'm seeing the effect that these people had on his life, and how that in turn translated over into mine. So I would really say, with your family, whether it's adopted or genetic, or both, it's worthwhile to look at, to do what you can to find out about your previous generations. Talk to your parents, and if your grandparents are alive still, talk to them as well, and find out about the people who came before. You may never meet those people, but those people have had an impact on you. They've had an effect on you. And understanding that effect can help you to shape who you are and change who you are. It can move you into some different directions. And I would say also, it may also help you do some healing with your family, and some healing with yourself. And so I think that's really important as well, because we all have our own histories or herstories or whatever you want to call them, that influence our lives. And knowing the history or herstory of your life, the ancestry, where you came from, and where these other people came from, and how they became the way they did, and how that shows up in your life, all of that can help you do some really deep, meaningful internal work. Help you break certain patterns, help you keep other patterns, help you to really shape your identity, and really look at how you're carrying forward not just yourself, but the other people that have affected your life, how you're bringing that forward to the people that you interact with now, including, if you have any children, including those children, but also including just the people around you. So that's just something I thought I would share, and thanks for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them below, and if you haven't subscribed, click on the T.